He's your tough-talking, reigning POTUS who commands the world's attention with his confident swagger. And when he's not flaunting his manhood on the catwalk, he's busy poking our friends to the north in the eye with his tariff stick.
Look, we've been ripped off for years, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore. No, I'm not going to bend at all. Aluminum or steel or cars, we're not going to bend. We've been ripped off as a country for many, many years. We've been subjected to costs that we shouldn't be subjected to. In the case of Canada, we're spending $200 billion a year to subsidize Canada. I love Canada. I love the people of Canada. I have many friends in Canada. The great one, Wayne Gretzky, the great. Hey, how good is Wayne Gretzky? He's the great. And to be honest with you, Canada only works as a state. It doesn't. We don't need anything they have. Why should we subsidize another country for $200 billion? It costs us $200 billion a year. And again, we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We have more than they do. We don't need anything.
We don't need anything they have, says El Presidente. Well, as you're about to see, there's a very big $19 billion thing that Canadians think they may not need from us anymore.
Look, up in the sky, it's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's our breaking story from the CBC, and it is not great news for the American people or the aerospace sector of our economy. It's coming up right after this clip. This happened just yesterday, an elegant and civilized warning from the Great White North.
Yeah, I think many of my colleagues coming here thought that this issue was still a joke. And that, this had to be taken in a humorous way. But I've said to them, this is not a joke. Canadians are anxious. Canadians are proud people, and you are here in a sovereign country. And so, therefore, we don't expect this to be even discussed or clearly not laughed at. And so I think you should ask them that question today. We had a very long conversation, the Secretary and I. I wanted to be able to have a frank conversation with him. Of course, Canada's sovereignty is not up for debate, and we had a long conversation on tariffs and trade. The approach when it comes to a relationship with the U.S., and through my conversation with the Secretary, was we will put maximum pressure on the Americans. And meanwhile, we'll work on finding off-ramps. Because we know ultimately, at the end of the day, the Trump tariffs are going to hurt Americans. What I said to the Secretary is Canada's sovereignty is not up to debate, period. There's no argument, there's no conversation about it, there's no need to talk about it. You're here, you respect us, you respect our sovereignty, you're in our country, you respect our people, period. Canadians are anxious, and there is a real fear of people across the country of losing their jobs and their families of being able to have access to decent livelihoods. And so that's why I feel the urgency, and the team feels the urgency of making sure that we are putting maximum pressure on the American administration, the Trump administration, while conveying to the American people, who are the only ones that can ultimately really have President Trump change course, to say to them, well, this is bad for you too. And to all the American friends here today, my message is clear. Trump tariffs are bad for American people.
How bad? Let's find out. According to this morning's CBC News, Canada is actively looking at potential alternatives to the U.S.-built F-35 stealth fighter and will hold conversations with rival aircraft makers, Defense Minister Bill Blair said late Friday, just hours after being reappointed to the post as part of Prime Minister Mark Carney's new cabinet. The remarks come one day after Portugal signaled it was planning to ditch its acquisition of the high-tech warplane. The re-examination in this country is taking place amid the bruising political fight with the Trump administration over tariffs and threats from the American president to annex Canada by economic force. There has been a groundswell of support among Canadians to kill the $19 billion purchase and find aircraft other than those manufactured and maintained in the United States. After years of delay, the Liberal government signed a contract with the U.S. defense giant Lockheed Martin in June 2023 to purchase 88 F-35 jets. The conversation about what's best for overall Canadian interests and the defense of the country is currently taking place with the military. Blair told CBC's Power and Politics it was the fighter jet identified by our Air Force as the platform that they required, but we are also examining other alternatives, whether we need all of those fighter jets to be F-35. Blair told host David Cochran. Canada has already put down its money for the first 16 warplanes, which are due to be delivered early next year. Blair is suggesting that the first F-35s might be accepted and the remainder of the fleet would be made up of aircraft from European suppliers, such as the Swedish-built Saab Gripen, which finished second in the competition. The Prime Minister has asked me to go and examine those things and have discussions with other sources, particularly where there may be opportunities to assemble those fighter jets in Canada, Blair said. That was an indirect reference to the Swedish proposal, which promised that assembly would take place in Canada and that there would be a transfer of intellectual property which would allow the aircraft to be maintained in this country. Major maintenance, overhaul, and software upgrades on the F-35 happen in the United States. The notion of Canada flying a mixed fleet of fighter jets is something the Air Force has long resisted, even though it did so up until the 1980s when the current CF-18s were purchased. It would mean two different training regimes, separate hangars and infrastructure, and a different supply chain, all of which defense planners have insisted for decades is too expensive. Prior to Blair's statement, Lockheed Martin was asked about Portugal's planned exit from the program and whether it would have an impact on Canada. Lockheed Martin values our strong partnership and history with the Royal Canadian Air Force and looks forward to continuing that partnership into the future, Rebecca Miller, Lockheed Martin's Director of Global Media Relations, said in a statement. Foreign military sales are government-to-government transactions, so anything further will be best addressed by the U.S. or respective customer governments. Miller also addressed online misinformation, get this, that suggested the F-35s have a so-called kill switch that could turn off aircraft belonging to allies or hobble their capabilities should the U.S. government order the company to do so. As part of our government contracts, we deliver all system infrastructure and data required for all F-35 customers to sustain the aircraft, Miller said. We remain committed to providing affordable and reliable sustainment services to our customers that enable them to complete their missions and come home safely. There would be some form of contract penalty should Canada not proceed with the entire purchase. How much it would cost to get out of the contract, well, that remains unclear. Billy Flynn, a retired lieutenant colonel and former F-35 test pilot, said the threats made by Trump have shaken confidence in the U.S. defense sector. I believe Canada has to adopt a transactional view that this is a contract that will go forward or at the risk of the trust that is always behind every purchase of American arms, Flynn said. Another consideration is any potential full or partial withdrawal from the F-35 contracts is that Canadian aerospace companies are part of the fighter jet supply chain, something that contributed $1.3 billion to this country's economy between 1997 and 2021. Yeah, Donald Trump, he's not having much luck when it comes to aircraft and things that fly up in the sky. Certainly in the last 52 days, seems to be getting worse. This story is evidence of that. The Canadians aren't messing around, and the rest of the world isn't happy either, and we're all going to end up paying for it in the end. I just wonder, really, who's flying this plane?
Don't make them so sweet this time.
You want another one? You've had two already. Can't you wait till we're on the ground?
What are you talking about? I'll make the next batch. You take the controls.
I don't know how to fly an airplane.
Well, it's really nothing to it.
But